We rely on working with true professionals. Carlos, you're our insurance. You handle our homeowners and auto insurance and so much more for our America's Professional Resource Group. Isn't it nice to have so many other professionals surrounding you?
Oh, it's absolutely fabulous because you can always turn to one of the members and get the answer that you don't know. Because obviously you can't know everything.
No, no, and I agree, and that's why we started America's Professional Resource Group, and you can find out more at aprgi.com, aprgi.com, and this is like a high level Angie's List, but it's for professionals. It's not, handymen. It's basically some of the best professionals. We're talking insurance, of course. We're talking financial planners, multiple types of attorneys, and sometimes, unfortunately, we do need them. You better get a good one. I know if I'm going to court, I want a good one. How about you?
Yes, no matter what, I want a good attorney.
I always ask Jim Reap. He's our attorney, and one of the number one family law attorney actually in town. I always ask Jim all the time just to make sure I'm protected. Hey, has my wife called you lately? Because I don't want him on her side.
I guess the answer should be no, then. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, well, he says, I can't tell you.
That's even worse.
Oh, no. Okay. So Carlos is here. What's really nice is, again, you can always get a quote from someone. What I've learned working with Carlos, and our clients feel the same way, is, Carlos, you ask the questions, you do your research, you find out what's important to them, where their home is, what their options are. You have multiple options, right?
Yeah, we're an independent agency, so we have about 32 carriers that we can go to. Depending on the circumstances or the needs of the client.
I think that's imperative. It's kind of like us. So, you can go to a bank, but they have one resource. And I'm not bagging any bank. I bank at a pretty large bank, but they have one resource for mortgages. Kind of the same thing.
Correct.
If it doesn't fit you, they're going to squeeze you into it, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot with the carriers that only have one option. I mean, you've got to make it fit one way or the other. That's not always the best option. So, it's good to go to an independent agency that has various carriers that can help you out.
Well, and my big push is also experience, and you have just a little bit of experience.
Yeah, I started back in 1983. That's a little bit ago.
Yeah, no doubt. 30 years experience over 30 years experience is a great resource to have, because we talk about this on the show that Gino and I do, more loans than most in this valley, meaning we get more at-bats and we get better and better and better at our job because we've seen everything. We've seen the pitfalls and the things that are going to come at us and how to navigate you through the troubles. If it's all clean and easy, then it doesn't matter who you go through. It's when you need us that matters. Kind of like insurance, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you never need it, but if you do need it, we're there for you. We want to make sure that you're properly protected. That is the key of it all. If you have upgrades, if you have a swimming pool, do you have the right kind of liability insurance? How much entertaining do you do? I mean, there's so many things that come into play.
You're going to raise my deductible and my insurance, huh?
Maybe.
It's funny. Give you a perfect example. I love Carlos because we were sitting in my studio here. He hadn't been in our custom built studio. We spent tens of thousands of dollars building this thing for you so that we can have this nice quality video for you to watch. Again, you can watch our show every day at 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. by going to donandgino.com. So we built this, and Carlos walks in and he goes, I don't believe this is on your insurance, because he handles our business insurance as well. He goes, I'm going to be adjusting your coverage.
Hey, to be fair, I waited till the show was over, and then I proceeded to tell you that.
It's a good point. It's a good point. And it's nice. I mean, you can hear us laughing. I mean, it's nice to work with somebody that's a nice guy. He's a real guy. In fact, you're so funny. We were trying to get you to do a little expert testimony, and you're like, I don't like talking about myself.
Yeah, that's never been one of my favorite things to do.
But you like talking about insurance, though. You do know your stuff, because you'll chase us down to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
That's all I do. I mean, I've been doing this for so long. I wouldn't know what else to do, but I enjoy it. And it's always changing. It changes so quickly, so often that sometimes we don't even know the answers, and we have to go research and look for it to make sure that we're giving you the right advice. Well,
let's talk about a couple things before we go to break. And after the break, we have a fun subject to go over. Anybody heard of Uber or Lyft? We're going to talk about whether they're covered or whether you're covered even worse. So we're going to touch on that in the second half. So before we go to break, let's talk about deductibles. Everybody always goes, do I need a high deductible, low deductible? You know, and how does that vary versus replacement cost and all that stuff? This is more your cup of tea, but help us with that, because I know that can be manipulated to potentially give you a lower rate, but are you covered? That's my concern all the time.
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing a lot out there is that people have low deductibles for their homeowners, for that matter, even on their auto for comp and collision, and they're not properly insured under the liability section. So a lot of times just shifting your dollars around and increasing your deductibles, getting better limits to protect you in case you're at fault, there's no money out of pocket. A lot of times it's even less premium. So that's one of the things that we see a lot, that people still have the lower $250 deductible that nowadays that's nothing. I mean...
And I don't imagine, I mean, honestly, I mean, the only time you need insurance when it's pretty tragic. Very rarely is it you're happy to have a $250 or whatever, $500 deductible. I would rather make sure that I'm covered.
Yeah, because, you know, the reality is most carriers are going to surcharge you after you have one claim. And that surcharge could be, you know, anywhere from 10 to 25%. So if you have a $500 deductible and the total claim is $700, they're only going to pay you $200. The surcharge is going to be more than that, and it's for 3 years. So we don't tell people not to put in a claim, but we always advise them what's going to happen. Are you sure you want me to do that?
That's a good point. I love that. See, that's where you're a true professional. You're not going to get that online. I'm sorry, it doesn't, and it might be in the small print somewhere, but who reads that? It's good to have you. Basically, that's where experience comes in. You know what questions to ask and inform them on.
Correct. We try to guide them in the right direction. The bottom line is they're going to have to make that decision, and they're going to have to live with that decision. We can only advise and suggest. And if you don't do what we ask you to do, then, of course, there's not much we can do.
Yeah, but at least you do give advice. I mean, or let's just say it's not even advice, it's information.
Correct.
Because same with us. We can't advise you which loan to take, but we're hoping by all the great information we give you that you can make an educated decision. You do the same thing.
That
you
is
didn't
right.
tell me what I had to do. You just said, Don, here's your options. And it was pretty, you know, plain and simple what I should do.
Correct. And then as time goes on, it's going to change. So we want to make sure that you always tell us what's going on. But, you know, at least every other year, we're going to come back to you and say, hey, let's go over everything.
Yeah, you're good about that. That's real good. And just if you tuned in, we're here with Carlos Villalobos with Carlos Villalobos Insurance Agency right out here in Santa Clarita on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show. Gino's not with me today. He's handling some family stuff. Poor grandpa passed away this last weekend, so he's handling that with his family. But you're going to want to stay tuned because we're here with Carlos Villalobos going over important insurance questions you need to know. And then we're going to talk about this thing called Uber and Lyft and whether you're covered or they're covered. Pretty interesting when we come back to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show.